What's up, friends? This is No Tagline Wit here. I'm usually joined by my co-host, Triple F Queen Bola, but she's going to be out for a few episodes. So for this episode, we're joined by a guest host, our friend Liqua. And we are blurting out about so many things that we actually had to break this episode into two parts. So this first episode is our Blerd Out episode. And you can find the Blackening review in the episode next week. So enjoy the pod. Okay, sweet chili sauce.
It's the same sauce that when you order sushi cake, you order like the calamari or stuff like that same sauce with like the pepper flakes in it. Mm-hmm. That's the sweet chili sauce.
Oh, I think that is what I like. Because I tried to figure it out one time, because maybe it's because I mixed up my Asian egg rolls and I thought they have the same sauce. But I got one kind, and I'm like, I don't like this sauce. It's not what I thought it was.
Yeah, it just depends on where you're at and what they serve. But, you know, it's only about I don't know. I feel like around here they serve you about 5 different sauces for dipping, and that's kind of it. It's either chili sauce, peanut sauce, sweet and sour sauce. There is some sort of clear fish type of sauce that I've had. I just can't remember what I've had it with, but I know the one you're talking about. I probably have had it with like Thai food, to be honest. And then there's like peanut sauce, and then then there's that lovely brown soy sauce that comes with dumplings. But I think that's just called dumpling sauce because it's something different. It's not like just soy sauce. It's like soy, garlic, ginger. A little something else. It's got a little something to it.
Some.
Yeah.
What's up, you guys? This is BlerdTalk with usually Bola and Whitney, but we are here now with special guests. Well, I don't know how you want to be presented, Liqua, if you wanted to give your
I guess I can go by Liqua.
Just Liqua, okay. Special guest Liqua here with us. So I'm No Tagline Wit. Usually we have Triple F Queen Bola here, but she's going to be out for a couple episodes. So we are actually guest hosting with this is the first time Liqua has been on the podcast. We've been asking her for a little while.
Yes, I've been invited a number of times. This is the first time that I've been able to make it work for my schedule. But we're going to have some fun today.
This feels like our great white whale. It's like, we got Liqua. We've been asking you for a while.
Great white whale. Well, you guys tend to ask with a little short notice. I was asked last week. I pulled up. I'm here. I made it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes today.
But yes, really glad to finally have Liqua on the pod. I'm sure you'll be back, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. But our main topic that we're reviewing today is the Blackening.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you for participating in the sound effects, Liqua.
Yes, always.
But before we get to the main topic, as usual, we have our segment called Blerd Out. Usually Bola does that little number, but I guess I'm going to have to try to make it work myself. So Liqua's probably going to give me an eye look for this. Blerd out. Dun, 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 blerd out. Dun, 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 blerd out. Dun, 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 blerd out. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 blerd out. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes! Liqua was participating in all of the sound hour. Yes. All right, so the Blerd Out segment is just our segment where we talk about things that are of interest to us, things that have happened that we like, or were just happened that we wanted to talk about. So, as the guest,
things that happened or things that are happening?
Happened or happening, or just like an interest. Like, for example, if like you like your favorite author came out with a new book that you started on, and you're like, oh, this book is fire. Or it was trash?
I don't know. I probably have two different things going on.
All
but
right.
I could probably just pick one, or we're going to do
You can
both.
pick more than one.
Okay, so Liqua here. Hello, guys. First time meeting y'all. Whitney and I have been friends for a very long time. I guess probably, oh my gosh, 20 some years now. Original Blerd friends. Definitely Blerd. Also a Black alternative girl. That'll come into play a little bit later on today. But part of my blerdiness is really enjoying paranormal romance novels. And so I recently kind of got back on a kick of like rereading all of my Kresley Cole books, just because I just felt like it one day. I think she's got about 18 books in a series.
Oh, wow.
And she took like a 5-year break from like 2017 to 2022. And I haven't read the book that was released in 2022 yet, because to be quite honest, the last book in 2017 was a little disappointing. So I'm like, I don't know. She's disappointing me. She's not really delivering like she used to. But, you know, I'm rereading all of the books. And I think, you know, I have one more book to reread, and then I'm going to reread the one that came out in 2022. So I had already been planning on doing this anyway. But lo and behold, this week, her Facebook page became active again. Oh. And she just announced that she's dropping 2 new books. So she's dropping a novella in the end of this year in 2023. And then she's dropping a full-length book in the end of 2024. And basically, the way romance novels work is that there's certain convictions of the genre, right? So there always have to be 2 characters. They always have to meet. They have to be at odds with one another in the beginning. They have to overcome some sort of obstacle, and then they have to fall in love, and the novel has to end happily. That is the framework. Now, you can take this framework and you can put it wherever you want. You can put it in space. You can add vampires. You can add aliens. You can add witches. You can put it back in time. You can put it in Europe. You can put it in Viking eras. But the book has to go that way. And so there's standalone books, and then there's series. And basically the way a series works is that there's typically a group of characters that are introduced in the first book. Either they're related or they're friends. And so then the love story focuses on 2 people. But then in the next book, what happens is that one of the characters from the previous book, they get their own love story. Okay. And you kind of just go through until you get to the end of the series, and everyone has their own happily ever after.
Like Bridgerton?
Yes, Bridgerton was a romance novel series, and it just followed their. I've read all those because I also like the historicals, and you know, in my opinion, I think the books are better than the show.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
As a romance novel fan, I think the books are better. I think they've made some changes in the show that as a book fan, I don't quite agree with. I feel like the character Eloise that is on like the TV show is really the character Hyacinth from the books. Oh. and that doesn't quite sit right with me. I also don't really care for like what they did with Marina Thompson's character, because her character, she's like the black girl from the one that they thought was pregnant, that was trying to trap Colin Bridgerton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In the books, she actually is Eloise's husband's first wife. So it's you know, they've kind of have mixed and mashed some things up with like the character storylines that I don't quite care for. And, you know, they also took out like some really great scenes, particularly in the second season. Oh. Like, I think all the race mixing stuff is really great. Like, I really like all of that because, you know, in your imagination, people can be whatever you imagine them to be. It doesn't matter how the author describes them. So I think that's cool. And I think the visual representations are really awesome. But what I don't care for is like how they take away some of the really good stuff from the books just to kind of make it a little bit more sensationalized and palatable for TV. But, you know, that's the game. That's how it goes, you know. But yeah, you know, if you feel like a good, you know, role in the paranormal romance novel, you know, Kresley Cole's good. You know, she's my favorite out of all the paranormal romance authors so far.
So is she mainly, that's her main vehicle is Facebook? to communicate with like fans?
Yeah. Yes. You know, a lot of book authors, man, a lot of the older ones, they don't do all that Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. Nah, and the thing is, she doesn't even run the Facebook. Her assistant runs it because her assistant puts her name at the end of the post in brackets. But that's how they do it.
It's funny to me because I'm like thinking from almost like a marketing standpoint when you're like, you said her name is
Kresley Cole.
Kresley Cole. I'm like, and you're like, her Facebook page became active again. I'm like, oh, that's something you don't want to have. And it's like, oh, it's been years and it's active again.
Yes. She started posting again, and it's like, okay, she's like, oh, and I have some announcements, and everyone, because, you know, book fans are like this. Like, I think, you know, people think about fandom in different ways, but like, you know, I've been reading her, I don't even know, like a friend put me on to her like maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And with books, you know, they come out, you're lucky if you get one book a year from an author.
True.
And, you know, the hardback typically comes out first. So I've been reading her since I think before I even had a Kindle. And so, you know, you save up your money and the hardback comes out first and it's like $25-$30 and the paperback is always $7 or $8, but the hardback comes out first and the library doesn't always have a copy and you can't always get one online. So it's definitely one of those things, like if you're committed to an author and you care about them, you're on their, because authors have websites, you're on their website, you're looking at it, you're like, you know, when is the next book coming out? And, you know, things happen, like the book releases get pushed back sometimes. And there was like a whole Reddit about her that it's like, what happened to her? Where is she? We heard she had Lyme disease and now we haven't heard anything from her.
Oh,
like,
snap.
But that was like 5 years ago.
That is a nightmare for a fan. Like, oh no,
like, what happened to her? So you know, people did investigating, and we, the fans, have learned that, not that she's told us, but we, the fans, figured out that, you know, her mother passed. She had some issues with her house, and she had Lyme disease. And that's what we think happened. But she's back now, and we're excited. That's probably the most exciting thing now that I think about it. I don't even need my second comment, because that's the thing I really been looking at.
That is funny. I have an author like that I wish they would put out another series similar. Speaking of, I could not get Bola to read the Darkangel series, but in 1 year I gifted you. Was it the first book, or did I give you the whole series?
You gave me the first book. Okay. I think I read the first book. You got really excited. You ran to the room immediately and gave me the other two. And they are in the shelf in my nerd room. Still, like, I was looking at them yesterday. I got through maybe a third of the second book, and then I just didn't finish it. And, you know, when I think about it, it's a good story. You know, I mean, you've recommended like stuff I've enjoyed. You know, it's not like I haven't enjoyed it, but I just never went back to it to finish it. Maybe after this run, I might go take a look. I don't know.
I just want somebody to read the Darkangel series so I can nerd out about them.
I mean, I've nerded out with you about the first book. How much nerding do you need?
I really want someone to finish the entire series, because I feel like we are similar in that we really love Tamora Pierce.
I love her.
Yes. But as much as I love,
looking for a new book from her too. She needs to finish the New Mare Chronicles. I've been reading her since I was 12. I'll never let it go.
Same.
So
I remember she was like one of my first favorite authors, like just, you know, in the school library. And I think I found it was an Alana.
Yes, exactly. That same thing happened to me. Alana, the little dusty coverback, looked like it was from the 70s. We went to the same middle school, so it was probably the same book.
And there was no going back after her. She is just a phenomenal author. I love her stuff.
I am secretly afraid that she's going to die before she finishes the New Mare Chronicles, because she's older, you know. I'm afraid.
Where's some wood? I think this is wood.
Oh, you got it? You got the wood? I think that's wood.
I got it. I got it. Yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah. But yeah, she is awesome. And I would have said that she is my favorite author. And she probably still is, as far as overall body of work. But my I forgot about Garth Nix. His Sabriel.
I read that back in the day, but I think I was reading it as it was come out, and I'm not entirely sure I finished it all the way. I remember reading Abhorsen. Was that the first book?
No, Sabriel was the first book. Lyra L was the second book, and then Abhorsen was actually the third book.
Was it the last book?
I feel like there might be one more. It could be the last book, though. I actually need to look into it because I feel, you know how sometimes
I
people...
really enjoyed the concept. Like, I read those books at least 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, longer, I think, because I'm older than I think I am. I definitely read them probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if I'm being more accurate. And I remember the concept with the bells and the fights and all that. I thought it was awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I don't think I've ever told Bola about that. I should suggest that to her as a fantasy series that she might enjoy.
Yeah, I have fond memories. I couldn't tell you a lot of the details, but I remember really enjoying it.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I really like that series. But as far as my favorite series ever, I think it's actually the Darkangel series. Like the world building, the story arc. I'm not going to give any spoilers since you haven't finished reading them.
I think what made it hard for me is that I read a lot of books with a lot of violence in them all the time. You know, like that Kresley Cole series that I love so much. Like, there's a lot of violence in it. You know, it's vampires becoming paired with witches, and you know, all these immortal beings. They're at war with, because in the background of the paranormal series, this particular series, there's a great war going on. So there's all these different factions and alliances and political intrigues, and these characters aligning with these characters. But you know, there's also like, I mean, there's sex in it. It's a romance novel. There's sex, but I've been reading romance novels since I was 12. So to be honest, I skip over the sex scenes. I don't even, they do nothing for me. Because you know, every romance novel has the same formula, and if you're familiar enough with the formula, like I don't care about that. Flip 5-10 pages back to the plot, back to the war.
It's funny you say that because I feel the same. Have you ever read any of the Laurel K. Hamilton?
The Anita Blake.
Yeah.
Remember you put me on to them, and
that's right. That's how we became. Isn't that the book that I was reading when we became friends? Was it something else?
Well, I think you were reading it. I didn't read those books until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, though.
But you saw, is that the one? Because you tell a story like you saw a cover and you're like, we'll probably be friends.
I don't know. It probably was. You used to read all the time, and I was like, all right, I'll let her do her thing. It's like chemistry class or something. Your nose was always in a book. I was like, all right, whatever. But yeah, no, her stuff, like the Anita Blake series, I really enjoyed it to a point. But then I stopped reading because either they got really sexy or really violent, or just it felt like a completely different world or completely different characters. Like for me, if a character stops feeling like that character and they're making decisions and things that don't feel like it's the character, to me it starts to feel like, because you know, let's be realistic, authors can't always author their own books 100%, right? So they get ghostwriters, they get people to help them, and for some authors you can kind of tell, and like when that happens and the spirit of the character isn't there, that takes away the suspension of belief for me, because I'm reading this to escape, and if the escape is off, then why am I doing this? I could be doing something else.
I got you.
Yeah, that's what happened with me with some of Sherrilyn Kenyon stuff. She's also like a big paranormal romance author, and I read like a ton of her stuff, but she has so many different series and she's so prolific that she's impossibly prolific. Like there's absolutely no way she's writing all this herself. And, you know, at a certain point, it's like these characters aren't even distinct from each other. Like some of the same phrases and passages are being said, and it's like all of these men can't all possibly be the biggest, baddest man walking. Like I know they're all powerful men and they're all desirable, but they can't all be the baddest thing all the time. You know, like it just gets weird after a certain point. That's why I like Kresley Cole's stuff so much, because all of the characters feel like distinct different people. They talk differently. They have different mannerisms, you know, and the words that they use to describe like their life experiences are all different. It's not the same cadence or the same tone in every character. And I think a lot of authors kind of, I don't know, maybe because I'm a therapist and I know that people are different on so many dimensions, that like if you're writing something and it feels like I'm looking at the same thing over and over again, I can tell, and it irks me because it's like there's not enough nuances in this. This is not a full person that you're writing about. Like, is this character even real in your mind, or are you just writing about a ghost? Like, what are you doing?
I like that. But yeah, I think I had the same issue with the Anita Blake series as you. I loved them starting out.
Yeah,
but then I think it was Narcissus in Chains. I didn't finish that book. It was a thick hardback book. I was so, and I bought it as a hardback because I was that excited. It was like, new Anita Blake. And it was so much sex.
That's what it was. It was too much sex. It's like, because wasn't the character not sexual at first?
I mean, she was, but she wasn't like super duper.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like it was taking over her mind and she couldn't think anymore. It's like she became like a nympho or something, or succubus. It was very strange.
It was. And it's like, I enjoyed like the plot and like the different conflicts and stuff and the big bads that would come up in the stories. But by Narcissus in Chains, there was like 30 pages worth of sex. And
That's
I'm
too
like,
much sex.
Yes. I'm like, I can't even flip far enough ahead to
like,
find the plot.
Fucking? Like,
right?
Can you say fucking on the podcast?
It's fine.
Okay.
We'll see if we reach a threshold. If we reach a certain threshold, I'll just mark it E as explicit.
Okay.
But it got so bad because like you, like, I also enjoy reading certain fan fiction authors who I'm like, if you put out something, take all my money. Like, if you put out your own stuff, I will give you my money. But there are certain things where if I get to a sex scene, sometimes I read it, sometimes I'm like, flip.
Yeah, it gets boring after a while because at the end of the day, there's only so many positions. There's only so much that can be written about. Like when you're an adult, I mean, when you're 12 and you haven't had sex, or you're a teen and you haven't had a lot of sex, it's interesting and dynamic and really taboo, and it really heightens the story and enhances like engagement of the material. But like, once you're old and you're grown and you've been around the block a few times, it's like, okay, all right, you done bent her over, finish her off so we can get back to what we're doing. Yeah, Bola, I hope this is the type of podcast you wanted today, baby. I might not get invited back.
Oh my God.
I was invited to Blerd Out, and that's what I'm doing.
No, this is what we want.
But I mean, come on. It's like you done did it. All right, big finish. Now let's get back to the plot because, there is a war going on and the vampire horde wants to kill you. You don't have time for this. You're on the battlefield. Let's go. It definitely happened in one of the books I read.
That is hilarious. But yeah. Favorite book series is actually the Darkangel. And I just really want to be able to talk about it with someone.
I don't know. I
but none of my friends who enjoy that type of stuff have finished it. Ooh, I should check with Todd. I gave Todd.
Yeah, maybe Todd was holding you down. Check with him. see if he finished it.
I keep forgetting. I'm like, because I gifted you some. I gifted Todd. I can't remember if it was the first one or like all of them, but I forget who I've actually gotten this started, and I forget to follow up. Like,
you gave me them books at least 2 years ago, maybe 3. I mean, I did read them. You gave them to me at some point in the pandemic, so I mean, I did read the first one, and because I remember because you asked me about it. Oh, did you like the first one? I'm like, yeah, it was good. I liked it, and then you immediately, you're the other 2, and I was like, I didn't commit to the other 2 books. I told you I'd read the first one. You asked me about the first one. I didn't say anything about book 2 and 3. It's like, all right, I'll try book 2, and I never made it. But I just looked at the book yesterday because I was in my room on my bookshelf grabbing another Kresley Cole book. It was right next to a Kresley Cole book, and I just seen it. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh yeah, that's that series Whitney wanted me to read. And I grabbed my book and I went on.
Oh man. So any other blerd outs for you?
Yeah, we professional wrestling fan, big pro wrestling fan, lapsed fan. And then I met my fiance a few years ago, and he is a big fan. And so we watch a great deal of wrestling in our house. And that is actually why I have to leave on time today after the podcast, because there is a pay-per-view. WWE is having Money in the Bank is the name of the pay-per-view. And the concept of the Money in the Bank match, like, I'm so used to wrestling, like I don't even think about it. But I think people who don't know about wrestling would find the concept fascinating. So basically the idea is there is a ladder in the ring. Well, there isn't a ladder in the ring. There's a briefcase that hangs above the ring. Oh. And inside the briefcase, there's a contract for you to be able to get a title match anytime you want against any opponent. It's called cashing in. On the Money in the Bank briefcase. It's there's similar concepts in wrestling, but different promotions have different gimmicks. So in WWE they call theirs Money in the Bank, but other promotions do other things similarly. And so basically the idea is you hang the prize over the ring, and the people in the match have to fight for the prize, and ultimately whoever gets a ladder in the ring and gets to the top of the ladder and unhooks the prize and puts it in their hand wins the match. And so this can be done with like title belts, and it's, other prizes, tournament prizes, things like that. But the idea is pretty fun, because essentially, like, normally in order to get a title shot in wrestling, you have to be a contender. Now, wrestling, people always say, well, wrestling's fake. Yeah, I know. You're not telling me anything I don't know. And to what I would say to those people, I would say wrestling is really like a long form extended performance art based off of theater in the round. It came out of carnivals in the 1800s. Basically, you had traveling carnivals. You know how you would have like the strongmen acts and like different wrestling acts. The people that traveled with the carnival came to realize that if they went ahead and fixed the fights and fixed the shows, they actually made more money from the patrons. And so that's where professional wrestling comes from. It comes from this idea that you're fixing a performance for the entertainment of others that they come and they pay to see. And over time, that kind of grew into like a territory system in the U.S. where different regions would have different wrestling promotions and different acts. And what happened in the 80s is that Vince McMahon ran the territory system out of business when he nationalized his company. And so what a lot of people remember in the 90s is they remember WWE versus WCW. And basically, those were the only two national wrestling promotions that existed at the time. Yeah. And by national, I just mean that they were on TV nationally that everyone could see, because there's still smaller promotions that exist. There's still indie promotions that exist. But when you talk about pro wrestling, most people think WWE, WCW, because that's what they've been exposed to.
Does WCW still exist?
No, WCW, Vince McMahon ran WCW out of business 20 years ago. During what was called the Monday Night Wars. And he bought that company. Yeah. And he had a monopoly on the business until about 4 years ago, when there was a challenger brand that came out called AEW. It stands for All Elite Wrestling. And they have shows on TBS and TNT, and they partner with Warner Media. And so we watch all of the wrestling. Like, we watch WWE, we watch AEW. We watch some Mexican promotions like AAA. We don't really watch CMLL because they're broadcast out of Mexico. It's hard to get a feed in the US. So we do watch some of their stuff when we can. We watch New Japan. We watch so much wrestling. Like, I think it's at least when I met him, we were only watching 2 hours of wrestling once a week. That's it, on Wednesdays. We were watching AEW Dynamite because at the time, WWE didn't have very strong programming. What happened about a year ago this summer is that Vince McMahon was forced to retire, and his son-in-law became in charge of the creative in the company. And in wrestling, the person in charge of creative is the person who writes the show. Because wrestling at the end of the day is a weekly live show. And each wrestler is playing a character. And each match is basically its own story that may contribute to the overall show, or it may contribute to a long form show, typically building up in between pay-per-views, which could be anywhere between 1 to 3 months. So telling these long form stories. And so, his son-in-law is an old wrestler named Triple H. He doesn't wrestle anymore. He was huge in the Attitude Era.
It's Triple H.
Yeah, Triple H is Vince McMahon's son-in-law.
Oh,
yeah,
snap.
he actually married Stephanie McMahon for real. They have 3 daughters.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Like they were married on TV, but they're also married in real life. They've been married for like 20, 25 years, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So Triple H is in charge of WWE now, more or less. I say more or less because they just recently got bought by Endeavor, and Endeavor owns UFC. And so basically when Endeavor bought WWE, they put Vince McMahon back in charge despite his sex scandal.
Oh.
But he's like nominatively in charge. But if you know wrestling really well, you can kind of see where Vince is in the product, and you can kind of see where Triple H is in the product. And it's kind of like a weird thing, but still enjoyable for now. But I think if it becomes unenjoyable, maybe we can cut out 5 hours of wrestling because it's 3 hours of wrestling on Mondays. I work late on Tuesdays, so I don't have to watch 2 hours of wrestling on Tuesdays. 2 hours of wrestling on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, we do comedy. We watch comedy stuff. Fridays, it's 3 hours of wrestling. And then at least one Saturday a month, there is a pay-per-view that's 3 hours. And then there's some months where there's multiple pay-per-views from different promotions. AEW only does a pay-per-view once a quarter. So, but they just had a pay-per-view just this past Sunday. It was 4 hours long, 5 hours if you add the pre-show.
Oh my God.
So, you know, some months it can be insane. Like there was one August where there were 6 pay-per-views, and I just had to tell them, I was like, I can't do this. Like we have to watch something else. And the way we balance it out in our household is that I love period pieces. So we watch a lot of period pieces. Period pieces, whodunits, masterpiece theater. He has seen all of Downton Abbey. He has favorite characters. He likes to pretend he wasn't into it. He was into it. He has very strong opinions about characters. He has very strong opinions about how they let Lady Sybil die. He felt very strongly about that. The fact that they did not take him to the hospital. He felt the type of way. He complained about that for 20 minutes. You know, we've watched like, you know, Paul Dark, and he watches Bridgerton with me, and we just watched like the Queen Charlotte Bridgerton. He felt very strongly about that as well. He what he doesn't like is when male characters in these shows have these secrets, and if they just tell the woman what's going on, they can resolve the problem, but they spend all this time hiding it. And he doesn't care for that. And anytime he sees it, it drives him nuts. And it just drives him nuts. And he just sits there. He'll sit there on the couch. Why won't he just tell her? Just tell her what's going on. Constantly throughout the whole show. He felt that way the first season of Bridgerton. You know, and the thing about it is, you know, I think that came out in December or something like that. I think he was staying with me that weekend. And I said, hey, babe, you know, there's this show. I've been waiting for it to come on. Is it okay if we watch a couple hours? Like, we don't have to watch the whole 6 hours, but, you know, I really want to watch a couple just so I can talk with my friends about it. And he was like, yeah. And so after about maybe 3 hours, I go to cut it off. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, I can cut it off. We can watch something else. He's like, nah. I got to see what's going on with the Duke. He's like, I need to see what's going on.
Hook, line, sinker.
He felt the type of way about the Duke. He was like, why won't he just tell her what he went through? Like, why won't he just tell her? And I'm like, are you sure, baby? He's like, no. He's like, I'm not leaving till I know what's going on with the Duke. And we watched the whole thing all in one day.
Awesome.
Yeah, life's about balance. So in our house, it's pro wrestling and period pieces, and our wedding is Wild English Garden plus pro wrestling. That's the theme. 1/2 period piece, 1/2 pro wrestling. And people can wear period piece attire, they can wear semi-formal attire, and I've told some people they can bring title belts. So we're going to see what happens.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, if we can just get there.
You gonna get there. I have never seen anyone's wedding so planned, so like optimally planned, and by one person. Like Liqua is a freaking it blows your mind. Like, this is who you want planning things for you. She is. I think at one point I've referred to you as Machiavellian.
Machiavelli. Yeah, you've called me that a couple times over the years. Yeah.
Liqua's got the long play.
Yeah. I like long-term stories, long-term planning, long-term thoughts. I got with him the first date. I knew I was going to marry him. I'm like, I got to trap this dude. What I got to do? Like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make meatloaf every Wednesday. I'm going to rub his beard. I'm going to gas him up. Make it so he don't even want to look at another girl. Trap him. You gotta at a certain point, you just got to draw a line in the sand. This is it. I'm done. He's mine. He'll figure it out. I'll give him some time.
I love it. My favorite ship, my favorite real life ship.
You were shipping us before we even went on our second date. I was thinking about that not too long ago, because for those of y'all who don't know, which I guess none of y'all do because I haven't been here before, but Whitney and I went to the same high school, but she went to the technical center. And my fiance, Kenny, he went to a different high school, but he knew her through the technical center. Mm-hmm. So we met online. I was swiping through his profile online, and I seen him. I thought he was cool. I had been talking with him for 3 days. So, we were thinking about meeting up. So I texted the girls like, hey, this is the guy I'm talking to right now. I think I'm going to go out with him. And Whitney goes, oh my God, Kenny, I know Kenny. He's awesome. And I'm like, okay. This is a good sign. And then it come to find out our good friend Julian also knew Kenny through
ECPI?
School. Yeah, ECPI. They'd taken classes together. And I think the day before my first date with him, I had dinner with Julian, and Julian figured out who he was. I wouldn't tell him his name or anything like that, but Julian figured out who he was, and then immediately did like a background check on him and looked him up and made sure he was good. Then he gave his sign of approval, and I was like, okay, well, these are two of my closest friends, people's opinions I value really high. They think this is a good idea. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. And now you guys are in the wedding, so it comes full circle. Like sometimes you just gotta listen to your friends.
Nice. So was that the end of your Blerd Out? You got anything else?
Yeah, no. I mean, no. Money in the Bank and Kresley Cole. Like, that's it.
Right.
Money in the Bank's at 3:00 today, so I'm gonna go watch that pay-per-view, and then I don't have to watch any more pay-per-views until sometime in July. It is July. So I think the next big one is SummerSlam. That's August sometime. Yeah.
But that is awesome. All right, let's see. What was I? Oh, I had. I can't remember if I talked about it, but I am blurting out about Yellowjackets. I don't know if you heard of that.
I think I saw a commercial, maybe.
Yeah, it's a Showtime show. They just had the end of their second season, but I just started watching it like a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I watch shows with my mom when we have our family. We do family dinners Wednesdays and Sundays. Mm-hmm. And after my brother and his family have gone home, because nephews are 4 and 6, and a lot of things we like to watch cannot be watched by 4 and 6-year-olds, or should not be watched by 4 and 6-year-olds. Mm-hmm. We start watching whatever we've decided is our mother-daughter watch thing. So we finished Vikings. That was awesome. We just finished season 2 of Yellowjackets. That show is so good. Actually, you should watch it, Liqua.
I don't have Showtime.
Oh, okay.
And we're not buying no more streaming services in my house. We have Apple TV Plus. I have no idea why.
You should check out, what was it that I just finished watching? Ted Lasso, just finished. That show's amazing.
I don't want to watch it mainly because I have a couple of people at work that tell me that I remind them of the black lady therapist on the show, and something about that's not rubbing me right. So
she was a favorite character of mine, though. I could see some of it, not exactly, but being excellent at her job. I see that in you. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
but I think you would like it. It's such a really good feel good show, and it's awesome all the way through. Mm-hmm. And it just ended 3 seasons, and I also like the fact that they didn't drag it out until it started getting bad.
Yeah, I think the way they tell stories on like Masterpiece Theater and stuff like that is, very British most of the time. And the idea is like, I had to learn this when I first started really getting into it. In America, we have seasons of shows. In Britain, they have series. So the whole first series is meant to tell a contained story. And then if they get renewed, they tell more story. And I really like that approach because I like stories to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't necessarily like them to go on for forever.
Yeah.
Like, even in pro wrestling with it being like a long form story arc that, has no ending because they have a show every week, the different stories within the show get wrapped up and then they tell new stories. They don't do the same thing over and over and over again or just the same, like how soap operas go for forever. Like, no, I can't stand
Recycling that same story.
No, I can't stand that.
Yeah, but Yellowjackets is just freaking Shrinking might be interesting. I haven't finished it yet, but that's on Apple TV Plus.
Shrinking? I don't think I know what that is.
It's a show. It's got Harrison Ford and I think it's Jason Segel is the guy's name. And they're shrinks, but the one dude has like his wife dies and he has like some type of crisis and he just starts telling his patients what he actually thinks.
I think I saw a commercial for that and I think I decided like I'm not watching that. So there are not a lot of TV shows about therapists, and when I do watch therapists that are depicted in the media, a lot of times they're depicted poorly. Like a lot of times they're depicted doing things like sleeping with their patients or dating their patients. And it's like, no therapist, like that is such a huge violation for like, you immediately lose your license. Like no therapist would ever do that, or socializing, becoming friends with their patients. It's like, no, the biggest slap on the wrist, like you immediately like lose your livelihood, like upon it being reported. Like it's so not a thing. And, or, they'll, oh, the therapist can read my mind. My therapist has superpowers. It's like, no, that's not what we do. Like we're not a magic wand. And so like a lot of depictions of it, because like, I saw a commercial, he's like telling his patient what he thinks, and it's just his behavior is just so inappropriate. It's just like, no, like I can't, like I'm not gonna be okay watching this.
Gotcha.
Like,
I
absolutely not. And honestly, this is very random, but Kenny and I are watching Rick and Morty, which I actually really enjoy.
Really?
A lot of women I know don't enjoy Rick and Morty because it's disgusting. Like, there are aspects to it that are very disgusting. I'm not gonna lie. But what I like about it is a lot of the sci-fi, but I also like the family dynamics and how the family dynamics are depicted on the show. And I think we're in, I don't know if it's season 3 or season 4 right now, but we just recently watched the Pickle Rick episode recently. And if anyone watches Rick and Morty, they'll know the Pickle Rick episode. It's like one of the most favorite episodes. Basically, there's this mad scientist character. He turns himself into a pickle to avoid family therapy. But his daughter realizes that that's what he did, and she takes the human return serum away from him and goes to therapy and leaves him as a pickle. And then he has to engineer arms and legs from himself. So first he does it with like a cockroach, then he does it with like rats, because if he doesn't get the serum within himself in about an hour, he's gonna die. So basically he's fighting his way to family therapy as a pickle. And then when he gets to family therapy, the therapist reads him to smithereens, and she does it in like the best way. I'm just like, that is an actual depiction of how a therapist would react in that situation. Like that is a therapist wrote that. That was right. So sometimes people get it right, and the Pickle Rick episode of Rick and Morty did a good job.
I mean, being that I like stuff like, Steven Universe, I can see why I like that anyway. But like,
love Steven Universe.
I watched Adventure Time and loved Adventure Time. Their world building I thought was like really great, and the kind of like, I don't know, just something about it was awesome. I never had an interest in Rick and Morty. I didn't really know what it was about either.
Honestly, I never had an interest in Rick and Morty. I always thought of it as kind of like a dude show. And honestly, the people that were always telling me to watch it were like typically white dudes. And with white dude nerds, You have to be really careful which of their recommendations you follow because like there can be like misogyny or like you know, bad depictions of race, you know, just like sexism, like there just be all kinds of problems in the stuff that they are like, oh, I love this. This is so great. This is so awesome. Like you can feel like not represented and stuff like that. But I mean, for me, just as someone who really enjoys sci-fi, like it's just interesting. I find it really interesting. And basically the reason we ended up watching it from the beginning is, I think this was around Mother's Day. I think season 6 might have dropped on HBO Max. And he was watching it, and I was like setting up Mother's Day, and I was on the phone with my brother and stuff like that. But I caught like different snippets of the episodes, you know, cleaning the kitchen. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And so then I just sat down and watched a couple with him, and I was like, oh, don't watch this without me. And so then we, you know, finished up season 6, and I was like, okay, I kind of understand, because, you know, I'll go and I'll Wikipedia and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on, but what? Because, you know, there was like some cloning happening, and it's like, oh, so-and-so's a clone of such and such, and they all know. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so then it's like, you know what, maybe we should just go back and watch it from the beginning so I can fully appreciate all of it and understand all of it and what's going on. Because out of all of like the black like nerds that I've ever known, especially like the girls, only one of them has ever said that they enjoyed Rick and Morty. Everyone else has always said it's just filthy. And I think my siblings showed me the Pickle Rick episode a long time ago, and I just thought it was disgusting. Because understand, in order for him to get this cockroach body, he has to bite the head off of a cockroach and stick his tongue in the brain to pilot the arms.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
Disgusting. Filthy. Appallingly nasty. Okay? And also, this character is an alcoholic and is routinely vomiting on himself and burping. And so he's depicted like in his drawing, he just has vomit on his face all the time. Right? Disgusting. The science is fascinating. The sci-fi is fascinating. The little cultures and the species and the adventures that they go on, fascinating. The family dynamics and how this family heals all this trauma that they have within themselves, while there's also all these interdimensional beings and all these different copies and different universes, fascinating. Some of the characters, disgusting. And if you can kind of manage all your feelings about it, it's a very interesting show. But there's going to be moments where you're going to be like, I can't watch that.
I'm gonna add that to my watch list. Recommendation from Liqua. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to my watch list to watch at some point. It's sounding interesting.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max.
Okay, cool.
Or Max.
Yeah. Yeah. All these freaking changes that HBO's streaming platform has gone through.
I mean, I've enjoyed watching Four Brides and all the reality TV that I used to watch back in the day, all the wedding shows.
To be honest, I've only ever watched it on vacation, like at the resorts TV had it, but like 90 Day Fiance or the 90 Day Fiance the other way, especially the ones where they had the commentary with the other people. I actually do really enjoy that. So that
I was at, I think for Easter, one of the cousins came down and she put on, what's that? I don't know. It's something about brother wives, I think is what it's called. Something about the woman having two husbands. And then she was trying to get a third and how all that was going. But before that, we watched some other show. I guess it was called Sister Wives was the first one. And we couldn't figure out how this one man had 3 wives. And I just got fast. It's like train track, car crash fascination. I sat there and I watched at least 2 or 3 episodes because I was like, what is going on here? And the cousin that put it on, she has a PhD in sociology, and she works. Her work is all about, marginalized Black people and politics and trying to, promote empowerment. And so I'm like, why are you watching this? Like, what is this about? She's like, this is fascinating. She's like, look at this. And we were just sucked in. I'm like, I can't believe, like, how did he, what is going on? They're like, oh, well, because, to be clear, I have no problem with polyandry. I have no problem with polygamy. I have no problem with open relationships, non-monogamous unions, things like that. Absolutely nothing wrong with those relationship models. That's fine. But when you watch some of these reality shows, and this is why I have a hard time watching reality TV just in general, like ever since, you know, I became a therapist and like even in grad school, because when you look at some of the dynamics, you can clearly see, I guess if you have training, you can see where, oh, this person is being manipulative. This person is narcissistic. This person is gaslighting. This person is taking advantage. This person is grooming. And I don't find like watching that entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because it's like, no, like you can see like on camera, you can see like no editing, none of the confessionals cut together as a story. It's like, I can see in this moment right here, like, you know, all those bad girls shows, and it's like, oh, you know, these women are arguing, they're throwing drinks on each other. I'm like, these women have poor emotional regulation, and they're behaving appallingly, and they're getting rewarded for it with fame and money, and this is not okay. So I don't find like stuff like that entertaining, but I was very surprised when I got sucked into the Sister Wives. Because I was just so fascinated with the dynamics. They're like, oh, we're in love with this person. This person betrayed us. I'm like, that person was clearly using you for a ticket to America. How did y'all not see this? It's like, what do you mean you're heartbroken? I was in a relationship with this person for 3 years. They lived in another country. What do you mean? What define relationship? Y'all don't even speak the same language. Make this make sense to me. So, like, these shows are something else. It's like, what define relationship? As you wanted to have sex with her and keep her as a pet? Is that what you meant? Because that is not a relationship, my friend. Like, that's not okay. And it's just like, you're clearly taking advantage of this person that doesn't speak your language, is coming from a poor country, needs the money, and then you're upset that they didn't come to live with you so that they could be an essential, you know, I don't know, not chattel slavery, but what is it? An indentured servant? Like what? What is going on?
Wow. That is.
I see all kind of things when I watch TV. That's why we watch period pieces in pro wrestling. Everybody loves Raymond and movies. That's what we watch at my house.
Oh man, I'm gonna I'm gonna cut out one of mine, but Yellowjackets is just really good. If you ever do get the opportunity to watch it, get like a trial of Showtime or something. The premise of the show is this girls soccer team is on the way to the championships. Their plane goes down in Canada in the wilderness.
Oh my goodness.
They are stuck out in the wilderness for 18 months.
Lord have mercy.
So
in Canada?
Yeah. So the story is going back and forth between their adult selves, like 25 years later, the ones who survived.
I'm about to say, it sounds a little Lord of the Flies to me.
Yes. There's some cannibalism.
Lord of the Flies / Maze Runner.
And it's just so entertaining because...
Wait, cannibalism, so they fried... These girls fried each other up. You look good at meeting. What you doing? Fry her up?
It was like by accident the first time. As far as, you know, they weren't trying to like fry her up. But they were having like a little funeral pyre. She died. They put the little funeral pyre together. They found this cabin they're staying in. The funeral pyre was outside. Instead of her getting burned up to like a, you know, cremation crisp, some snow from the trees overhead comes down, prevents her from being completely crisped up. And they wake up in the morning, they're like, what's that smell?
Oh, no.
So they go outside and she's just, I guess.
She just got roasted.
Yes. Yes.
Say, oh, she extra crispy. We go.
So, you know, they're starving. So they ate her. Other than one of the adults, the only adult who survived, one of the coaches, he did not eat her, and he was horrified by these women because he's gay, so he's like having these flashbacks of talking to his partner and about what happened if he didn't get on the plane. He's like, yeah, these girls are just vicious, and so seeing these girls eat these,
I absolutely believe that these high school girls fried each other up and ate them. I absolutely believe this.
But it is so entertaining. Like Christina Ricci's character, her name is Misty.
Like her.
Yes. She's the best character on the show. She's like the kind of an outcast. She's really super nerdy, but when they get out in the wilderness, all of her little nerdiness, like knowing all this different random stuff actually helps them to survive, which is part of the reason why they were out there so long, because she found the little box. And because she heard some of the people walking by saying, I don't know what we'd do if Misty weren't here. She's such an outcast. And she was like, in her head, I guess, is just like, oh, now they like me. Now I'm useful. So she destroys the little thing, the black box or whatever. But she just does all these things. Misty is, what did they say at one point? A closer. Like, stuff pops off, like, in their adult lives. So they're going back and forth between what happened then and them 25 years later with Christina Ricci playing the adult version of Misty. And this reporter who's trying to find out stuff from them, one of the people get kidnapped. Misty got cameras set up in one of the girls' apartments or whatever. Like, it's not an apartment, it's like a home, just to keep an eye on people. Misty is finding shit out.
That sounds crazy.
Yes, she is legit crazy.
If we ever get Showtime, I'll put it on my list.
You would love it, but she is just so entertaining because then she just go and she just be out here. She didn't kill the reporter lady, and they're like, when they finally all come together near the end of season 2, they're like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about so and so. I took care of it." They're like, "What do you mean you took care of it?"
Lord have mercy.
And one of the girls kills her lover by accident because she thinks that he's blackmailing her and has done all this stuff. It wasn't him. It was actually her husband who did it, who was trying to blackmail her friends because they had money. So she kills him by accident.
Is this all white ladies?
Yes, except for one of the main characters is a black lady. She looks like she probably could be mixed though. But it's just entertaining because she's like, they find the body and she's like, did you bury him 6 feet under like I told you? She's like, I knew I should have did it myself. And I'm like, this is the stuff that entertains me. I love Christina Ricci.
First of all, if I'm murdering somebody, I don't see me digging no hole. Like I don't see me digging no 6 foot deep hole. I don't see it.
Yeah, the person they asked to do it is probably also not the best person to ensure that they followed all of the instructions.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're gonna be in a shallow grave in the woods. Like that's
probably
it.
what she did.
That's probably
character.
how all the murders get caught because 6
like,
feet. That's too much exercise.
Too much work.
Like, when was the last time you dug a hole? I don't even like digging my car out of the snow.
This is just not gonna happen. Yeah. But yeah, being that you like Christina Ricci, like, check, if you get the opportunity, check out Yellowjackets. So good. So good. Yeah, you guys just got to check that out. It's amazing. I can't wait until they have whatever the 3rd season is going to be, but it's just an awesome show with great character. Well, especially Misty, Christina Ricci, phenomenal.
Yeah, she's always been good.
Yeah. You're right about that. She is also always awesome. But the other thing I just wanted to touch on really quick before we get into Maine is just the Jonathan Majors video.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Just really quick, because at first I was excited. Well, the reason I know about it is because of video. I didn't watch the video. I just saw like the headline of the video was like video evidence.
I don't know about any of this, man.
I don't know either. I would be really happy if he didn't do it.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things you never know. And I think I talked about this on one of our prior episodes. It's like, how do you balance that? You want to believe victims, but you can't also just throw someone under the bus. You don't know what.
I would say, I don't know. I probably have a very twisted perspective about it just based off of work. So I've worked with a lot of people who've suffered domestic violence. And oftentimes domestic violence is 2 ways, right? So, there may be the person who's like, for lack of a better term, getting beat up the most. But a lot of times that person beats the other person up. Now, this isn't like 100% like all the time, but there very much is this kind of mutual abuse that happens because these are very toxic, unsafe, unhealthy relationships that can be mutually toxic both ways. And there's different levels. Like, there's all different types of abuse. There's verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, sexual abuse. Our society tends to focus more on physical abuse more than anything. And that's, what gets talked about, but we don't always kind of think about, you know, like when I was talking about reality shows earlier, how many times have you seen like a woman cussing her man out and then a man cussing her woman out, you know, or, you know, two members of any couple cussing each other out back and forth, someone throwing something, someone, you know, moving objects towards the person, like threatening as if they're going to hit the person. Oh, I'm going to get so-and-so out of you. Like, it's so normalized in our culture. Like, there's just a certain amount of violence and harshness and brutality to our culture that's so extensive nowadays that it's kind of hard to, like, for me, it's almost hard to get enraged in any way, because it's like, okay, so there's lots of different optics you can look at it here. You could look at it like, oh, there's this man, he hit this woman, this is bad. You can also say there is this black man who looks like a throwback to the civil rights movement, right? He has a certain look about him where people are more likely to believe that he is violent, regardless of if he is violent or not. And then you have this white woman. And then historically, white women have been the most dangerous people to have around black and brown people, right? You know, Emmett Till, like, I will never let that go. Like, personally, I will never let that go. I remember learning about that when I was young, you know, having read like Watson's Go to Birmingham, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. My family's from the Deep South, hearing about, you know, how members of our family have been, you know, attacked and things like that. You know, grandparents grew up in Jim Crow, and, you know, hearing about Emmett Till, you know, he got just brutalized for whistling at a white girl, and then come to find out, you know, decades later, that one white woman says, oh, that didn't even happen, I made it up. Right? And you can go on TikTok and you can see all these different videos of, you know, white women like crying tears and, you know, weaponizing and like, you know, playing the victim to like win power. And, you know, the number of times, even just in my professional life, like where colleagues have said, oh, you know, I don't think she likes me, she's being mean to me. Right? And, you know, that harming me professionally because some white woman got upset because I didn't smile at her that day, or I didn't want to be her friend, or I didn't seem friendly enough to her. So we've got this very real like history of white women being dangerous to black people. And so it's like, okay, this incident happened with a white woman. Well, can we trust this? Because of all of the politics and all of the optics and what was said to have happened, right? And then you have, you know, people in his own art community coming out and saying, oh, but, you know, he has instances of being toxic. It's like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, who's defining the toxicity? What happened? Because also nowadays we live in cancel culture, and you can bury anyone with the words, you
Just
know,
small stuff that doesn't even, it's like, there's no nuance.
So it's like, you know, you've got all these layers. And then the other layer is, you know, how much does it matter when it comes to the art, right? Can you separate the art from the artist, right? And, you know, this is a conversation we've been having in our community, like the black community, for forever, you know, because like R. Kelly's in jail right now. R. Kelly should have been in jail 20 years ago. People are still playing his music, you know, his music lives on. All that stuff that happened with Michael Jackson, you know, him being accused of being a you know, child molester, child abuser, blah, blah, blah. He's been dead since 2009. People still play his music, right? You know, and there's like history of like, you know, all of these, I guess, you know, artists, like maybe not being the best people and, you know, being violent, but how much does it matter from the art? You know, it's like, yeah, you want to be a conscious consumer, but it's like, so, you know, what does this mean? Does this mean that I have to like limit myself from watching the things that I enjoy that give me peace because this person may have done something, you know, and who gets to decide that? So I think it's just really, really complex. And, you know, like I remember when it dropped, every single nerd had a, that I knew had something, every single Blerd really, because to be quite honest, I might only have like maybe Ted and maybe like, I would say Ted is like my only like white nerd. No, Ted and Jason are like my only two like white nerd friends. Everyone else Blerds, like 100%. And you know, we've got like the rest. I call them the wrestling bros, but you know, all of Kenny's friends that watch wrestling with us, plus you know, all of my friends, and heard from everybody. Everybody had an opinion, and it's just like, I can't feel that I can have one. Like, I don't really know. I want, I need to see. I need to see what information they give us. I need to, and not see the video per se, but I want to hear, the whole story and not just like bits and pieces in the impression. Yeah. And I think the whole story comes out in court, and then maybe we decide. Does that mean that I'm not going to watch him in performances? I don't know, because I think he's a hell of an actor. Does that mean that I never watch Lovecraft Country again? Absolutely
no. I'm sorry. I draw the line.
Absolutely not. He put on a hell of a performance in Lovecraft Country. And I greatly enjoyed it. So it's like, no. Like, does it mean that, I don't know what it means.
It is. It's so interesting, because I'm glad that you said that, because I feel that way about pretty much anything, anytime something like this comes out. It's like the only people who really know are the two people who are involved with it. And sometimes it's questionable about that, because, the people who, I don't know, are just like lie all the time and believe their own lies. Like, so they might not even know the truth because they've twisted it in their mind. But it's like, you don't want to pass judgment, but then it's like our culture makes it so difficult. Like, everybody wants to ask the question, what do you think? What do you think?
I think to me, it seems like they were probably in a mutually abusive relationship. I felt the same way about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I felt like they were in a mutually abusive relationship, where she was clearly more violent, but maybe he was more psychological with his abuse. When I kind of listened to the bits and pieces from the trial that I did allow myself to listen to, because I like to limit how much traumatic content I get exposed to in a day. Yeah. So, that's kind of what I came away with. And then I also felt like it changes nothing. It's like, okay, so these might be your opinions, but I don't necessarily walk around with big opinions about actors, right? Same. But then again, it could be I'm not that into, like I like movies. Movies are a big deal, but I might not get super attached to actors. I can tell you right now, like I'm much more attached to like comedians that I follow, and much more attached to the pro wrestlers that I follow. Now, if it came out like one of my favorite pro wrestlers beat the hell out of some girl, I'm gonna feel the type of way about it, because it's like, man, I can't support you no more. And that does happen in wrestling. Like, sometimes you find out that your favorite wrestler is abusive or was in an abusive relationship. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time, a guy named X-Pac, used to be in DX back in the 90s. Loved him. Like, loved X-Pac back in the day. And then when reality TV kind of became a thing, his girlfriend, Chyna, who was another female wrestler. Huh?
The Chyna?
Yeah, Chyna.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, he was with her at one point. She did that, what is it, The Surreal Life with the Brady. It was like a dude from the Brady Bunch, one of the girls from Top Model, her, and then a couple other people. It was on VH1 back in the day, like probably like, I don't know, 10, well, at least 10, probably 15 years ago, something like that. But, because this was before she passed.
Wait, what?
Yes, Chyna passed away.
Chyna did?
Yes, she's no longer with us. R.I.P. But she was on the show, and she was clearly exhibiting some odd, like, manic behavior and maybe some drug-related behavior. When she did pass, they did come out and say that she had some problems with drugs, so it's hard to know. But one of the things that she was very clear about was that he was very abusive to her. Like, when she was on the show filming, and at one point, he pulled up. Like, he was on camera, he pulled up. Like, they didn't hit each other, have a scuffle. But, like, when I found out, like, oh, man, this guy isn't a good guy, like, that was disappointing for me. Yeah. But when they had the DX reunion on Raw on the 30-year anniversary of Raw a few months ago, I was still singing the song and dancing. So, it's hard to like
separate the artist from the art.
Yes, because when they did that reunion, I was pumped, even though this is a bunch of 50-year-old men in the ring. I'm just singing the song, break it down, like having my moment. And I think that's part of like what it means to be a fan. It's like you appreciate the body of work, you appreciate the art. It's there for you emotionally. You have connections to it, and it's hard to separate that, from the person. It's like, oh, because this person did this, I have to give up this thing that I love so much. And I think that's really hard.
I think that for me, it doesn't make sense to do that. If it's really impacted you in that type of way,
yeah,
you shouldn't have to. You can. We're all complex. We cannot support a person but still be like, and it's like, especially for something like a movie, there's so many people involved in like a movie or television show. So you're going to like just trash all these people's work.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
For
That's
this
a good
one
point.
person.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm thinking about Ashley. Like we have a good friend named Ashley that was a Harry Potter fan forever. And then when J.K. Rowling started being anti-trans or you know whatever it is she's saying, I think I've been told she's a TERF, I think trans exclusionary
Radical feminist. Yeah,
I think is what that means. And then Ashley threw away all her books.
Oh snap!
And renounced all of her Harry Potter stuff. Took the little Harry Potter ringtone off her phone, had to stop calling herself a Hufflepuff, and it really hurt her. I felt so bad for her. Like, I'm not sure it could have been me. Like if Tamora Pierce comes out tomorrow and says, "I hate Negroes," I'm gonna be like, all right. Like, all right, yeah. Where's the next book? like, all right, like I didn't ask you all that. I asked you what Numair is up to. Like, I done already spent the money. What am I throwing the books away for? Books are forever. Like,
right?
You know, I done already gave you my money. Okay, you can have this little. I'm gonna buy the next two. You have this little $50. Like, you don't like Negroes? Okay, fine. What's up with Numair? Like, and that's probably the decision I would make.
I think it's the same for me. Like, art that really resonates with me, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. Like, I just don't see. Life's too short. There's too few chances at happiness. You know, you have to do what you enjoy, because otherwise you're just working and slaving and suffering. And, you know, how much suffering do you really need?
True that. Snap, snap.
Snap, snap.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe to our show on whatever podcast listening app you use, and share the show with other Blerds and non-Blerds, family and friends. And if you like this episode, please subscribe to our email newsletter at blerdtalkbw.ck.page, and also rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts.
Intro and outro music is Twilight by Caption. You can find them on SoundCloud, username Caption spelled Capshun. Show notes by Bola, Hanson, audio engineering by Whitney Booker.
And don't forget to get social, you guys. You can email us at blerdtalkbw@gmail.com. And our social media handles on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok is at blerdtalkbw. And our YouTube channel is youtube.com/@blerdtalkbw. And we've got our individual things going on too. You can find the Triple F Queen on Instagram at Triple F Queen B as in boy. And my YouTube channel is youtube.com/@Triple F Queen B.
And you can find me, Whitney, at Luminabi Studios, my company, and the email address is wit@luminabi.com, spelled WHIT @LUMENABI.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at Luminabi Studios.